The events you're about to see and hear contain copyrighted material, the use of which has not always been authorized by the copyright owner. In accordance with our Save the Music mission, we are making this material available to advance the art of the cousin of hip-hop, go-go music. All material supports the narrative timeline of events in the episodes. We believe this constitutes the fair use of any such copyrighted material provided under the copyright law. This is the Crank Disclaimer.
The 1980s was an era of great revolution. We witnessed the evolution of personal computers, space-age technology, and MTV. Another evolution that will forever change the future of pop culture was an alternative culture brewing in the inner ghettos of New York City. This culture phenomena will grow to be known as hip-hop.
But right now, all around us, and so compelling you never miss the fact there's no melody, is a music that is all beat, strong beat, and talk. It's rap music, and it sounds like this.
Yeah, come on now. Brakes on the bus, brakes on the car.
The Breaks was Curtis Blow's biggest hit, selling 680,000 copies last year.
Hip-hop is essentially the love of the drum, because we lose our minds when the music breaks down to the drums. That's when we start rapping. That's when we start breakdancing.
Anybody that understands hip-hop and how it began, it started from DJs. It started from the records. You know, any record that you could play that had a breakdown in it, you know, they would just rock the break.
Hip-hop will go on to break out of New York City and become a dominant force worldwide. Often left in the shadow of hip-hop, another culture was simultaneously being created in the inner city ghettos of Washington, D.C. This culture would be known as go-go.
Go-go's were the affair itself. Phase go-go came in. I mean, the music was developed after the go-go itself.
Give it a spotlight so I can see you. Raise your hands like crazy. I love you.
It's the Movement Radio program, and welcome to Go-Go. In Washington, D.C., this is the hottest music in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, guys and gals, this is Go-Go on WOL.
As early as the mid-70s, go-go acts such as Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers, Experience Unlimited, and Trouble Funk had released singles throughout the East Coast region. In 1978, Chuck Brown scored with the number smash, Bustin' Loose.
I feel like busting loose now. Busting loose in the evening. Busting loose can be pleasing. Talk about busting loose.
Rap had just started with Sugar Hill Gang, and I felt that there was a uniqueness in the quality and the style of Washington music.
So basically, as far as music is concerned, this DC sound is called the go-go. It's the first music that we have had here in a long time to put Washington, D.C. on the map for establishing a sound, the DC sound.
In the early 80s, however, rappers and go-go bands began to collaborate on records and perform together. Artists such as Curtis Blow, Dougie Fresh, and Salt and Pepper.
The first time I heard go-go music had to be, it was 1980. It was on my birthday. It was called go-go music. Go-go music. Wow. A new sound.
The very first time I heard go-go, I was in elementary school. I was at LaSalle Elementary, and I heard it through the boys that played on their desk at school. They would be beating on it, the boom, ka-boom, ka-boom, ta-boom, ka-boom, ka-boom, you know. And so all the boys in the classroom, they would just get together and play, and they would bring their tapes to school with their boom boxes, and they would be playing Red Essence, Lil Benny, Trouble Funk, Sugar Bear, all that type of stuff. So I heard it at a very, very young age in school.
How far apart is a band that plays in Washington 5 nights a week and making fairly good money from a bar mitzvah and a wedding band?
In the late 1970s, hip-hop and go-go were both regional art forms, nowhere on the radar of multimedia corporations, created hundreds of miles apart from one another. The two subcultures would embody similarities that were virtually identical.
A top record in this area could sell 20 to 40,000 copies, which means that the record company makes a profit, the bands make a profit, and then you could have bands playing for as much as $10,000 a night, which really is an amazing amount of money for local acts. There are acts today that have put out 10 albums on major labels that don't make $10,000 a night.
The desire to make a record that can compete with what's going on nationally, we just had a respect for that I think nowadays people feel like, well, maybe this is okay. And not from just coming from a standpoint of owning a recording studio, but I know the difference between making a very good record that can compete with a Jay-Z or, you got to figure these hip-hop songs are sitting in the middle of what R&B, now you have hip-hop and go-go. So a lot of the hip-hop stuff, even beat-wise, is even closer, obviously with somebody, rapping on it. It's so much closer to even what go-go is and it needs to be.
We signed with one of the biggest record companies in the world, MCA, and they're in the business of, #1, selling records.
Look at them as kind of like New Edition, Bobby Brown, the younger type of hip-hoppers that will not just come on the scene, but have the potential, if they find the good hit, and if they make those big hits, to burst onto the scene.
Both were art forms of expression, celebrated by inner-city youth. Before playing in the coliseums and arenas, both cultures began in the parks and recreation centers of urban housing projects.
At a time that it was in the beginning stages, and as it started to evolve, it was right around the time hip-hop had started to evolve. So they were really like neck and neck. It was crazy. I felt like Brassens at that time of releasing one record and just the whole hype of what was going on down here, because it was a new thing that just started happening.
Some local go-go bands signed to rap labels and had national success.
Every morning, about a quarter to 2, people started doing.
DC began to spawn its own rappers. DC Scorpio was the first to be known as a DC rapper.
We drop a Stone Cold Hustler, and I mix go-go beat with some rap lyrics, because I was the first rapper that they ever heard. So I didn't think I'd get through unless I did it with what the city wanted.
Later would come Fat Rodney, Stinky Dink, and DJ Kool, among many, many others.
DC loves go-go, period, point blank. And I love it too, but you know, it's like, it is just the underground thing that just drives the music here.
You know, coming from that time, it was a lot going on with the drug trade, you know. And with that being said, New York was in DC a lot, you know. DC was in New York a lot. That whole connection, and then the culture started to, you know, just trade places. So you would have go-go shows here, but you would have like Africa Bambaataa on the show at the Coliseum, you know, with Rare Essence and Trouble Funk. So it would be like that mixing of the cultures.
Oh, I mean, it's non-stop. It's non-stop funk. And the thing is, you know, it's live, you know, all the way live in the band. You know, to say you go to a show and like up in New York, the DJ plays, everybody's doing their break dancing and dancing, right? When the band comes on in New York, everybody stops. Here it's the exact opposite. Everybody gets off to the band when the band's taking their break and they're getting ready for another band. The crowd just sitting down taking it easy.
So we pulls up to the Capitol Center, rolls up in there, you know, the band's setting up. So I walk in, you know, sold out concert. I'm going on last, you know, headlining. And walk up and I see this band playing on stage. It's about, you know, 8, 10. Show just started. And then the guy with the band, he was on the microphone, he said, "Shabba here without it." And the whole crowd said, "Harder, harder, harder, harder." And I was like, oh my God, it's like crowd response. Now I'm the master of crowd response. I learned from DJ Hollywood. I'm New York. You know, we've been rapping and scratching 7, 8 years before the first record. I got experience rocking the crowd. Say ho, scream, throw your hand. This curse blow, baby. So I'm seeing this cat, like, I never seen him before. Never knew his name, nothing. Never heard of his band. Called Rare Essence.
We went to the Capitol Center, and there was a lot of major players on there, like Queen Latifah and many more, Dougie Fresh. And so we noticed that since we didn't do go-go, the crowd was kind of weak. They wasn't really feeling the artists, and you know, it was major artists. And Rare Essence was on there. So every time each artist got on, the crowd was kind of real weak. All I know, after Dougie got off, Rare Essence came on, and the crowd just ran up to the front and everything. So we like, damn, what the hell is going on? You know, then next thing you know, I just heard some drums, some congos, man. It's like, wow, this beat is crazy. Like, you know, next thing you know, I just seen the whole Capitol Center just got out of control.
My music always had that kind of flavor, but I didn't really know the influence that go-go had over me. But it was because I was listening to it and I enjoyed the music. It was a celebration beat. So from there, I wound up performing at Capitol Center one day with Chuck Brown and Run DMC. Run told me, "Have you ever seen Chuck?" I said, "No." He said, "It's the most unbelievable experience in your life."
You know, everybody uses go-go in their songs, and so it hasn't taken over the world, but everybody has had a go-go influence in their music. A lot of people, Pepper, like I said, you know, we did that Shake Your Thing with Sugar Bear. That was huge for us.
That they don't understand the way you take your mind. Ow. Do what you wanna do. I can tell you how to dance your groove. It's your fine thing. Do what you wanna do. I won't tell you what's like to do.
Go-go was just out there like this raw form of energy, and it was untapped. So Chris Blackwell felt that Island Films could take go-go, which they did, and make it this huge force, which they did. And they made go-go, took it out of Washington, D.C. and brought it into New York City, London, England, all of these other countries where the music form itself was more accepted and recognized for the fact that it is essentially Afrocentric in origins, and that, it's just something that I think go-go has got the under wrap on things, in the sense that it's not getting the kind of play it should get for the type of art form that it is.
Now I want y'all to break this down with a triple hit. Here we go, stepping in. Which way did he go? Say what?
We from DC, we play go-go music. It's party music.
Our musical guests tonight take the New York rap sound one step further. They call it the Washington D.C. go-go music. Here is EU singing their hit song from the film School Days called The Bud.
All right. That's right. Come on now. Say again. That's right.
If it wasn't for go-go music, that's what gave me that stage time. That TV video took me across the water, with EU. We went to all these countries, man. You know what I mean? Playing go-go music. I'm talking about raw go-go music. I ain't talking about watered down, grown and sexy. I'm talking about straight pocket. Killing them. You know what I mean?
In hip-hop, it's a culture. Go-go is a culture. Hip-hop is a lifestyle. Go-go is a lifestyle.
Both adopted a certain lingo, dance, and fashion trend. Both cultures forge an interactive bond with its audience through the art of call and response.
I say, do you feel good? I want everybody in the house to say real good. Now, do you feel good?
Those that live the culture every day considered it a way of life. At the time, struggling record producer Russell Simmons caught ear of this new sound out of D.C. that was fueling the production to most of the era's hip-hop records. He and Max would eventually begin canvassing the D.C. scene for talent.
Max was the kind of promoter that would go out of his way to bring you in to his world, and that's how I got to meet Max. I was brought into go-go. I was a DJ at WHUR, and I met Max Kidd through a record party that was sponsored by CBS Records, and Max gave me a couple of go-go records, and I started listening to them, and I was surprised to hear that the music content was actually rather good.
So they call this the go-go beat. Not bad, not bad. It's very unique. I say, that's what we talking about. That's what we talking about.
You can really feel that they're really in hell was when they come across that 14th Street Bridge right down in Washington that separates Virginia from Washington. And when they came, they were bringing the blues, they were bringing the gospel, they were bringing the spiritual situation. Jazz and the R&B, which is based out of blues. The inner city kids could not afford the nice electronical instruments, or to that matter, drums, percussions, and they would take everything from hand-me-down congas, cowbells, to even taking soda bottles and tin cans, working up to now to go-go's is this sound, this feel.
Like the reggae, it's like the New York hip-hop, hibbity-hop type music. I really see progress in the go-go. And I thank the Lord that I do see progress in it because I recorded 16 albums and it's about time.
I guess a couple guys got shot outside. That's pretty wild, if you want to call it wild.
If you didn't have one go-go show in D.C. all year, you would still have this drug problem, you would still have deaths, and you would still have all of the violence related to the drug problem.
With Max unable to control the bands, Chris Blackwell lost interest in go-go's potential to be the next big thing to reggae. He eventually turned his attentions to the movement Russell Simmons was creating in New York with hip-hop, a twist of fate that would begin the decade-long venture Island Def Jam Records and a history of stars to follow.
And we have go-go icons here. You know, we have rappers, we have talkers, musicians, and the thing about musicians that the funny thing is that, you know, a lot of bands that tour, they choose musicians here from DC.